Welcome to West Country Wanderings and welcome back to the Severn Way, part 22 today. This is going to be a strange one because by the end of the journey today we'll only be 1 mile closer to our destination, the city and port of Bristol. We're going to be doing what is known as the Arlingham Loop. In fact, if you look at the BBC or ITV or any of the weather on the TV or even on the internet, you'll see that there is a little loop on the map there where the River Severn is. That's the bit they'll be walking around today. So I've kind of parked near Frampton-on-Severn, going to walk around the loop. It's about 9 miles. I think last time I said it was about 15 miles, but it's about 9 miles for the completion of the route today. I've chosen a nice sunny day. There might be a couple of showers, but hopefully not. Hopefully everything will be going well. Behind me here is the church here, Framilode, Upper Framilode, which was built for a nearby estate. We'll be taking in places like Priding and then going around, just skirting around the village of Arlingham and then making our way to the beautiful village of Frampton-upon-Severn, which has, well, you probably know, a very large village green and gravel pits there as well. Lakes really good for nature. So I hope you can join me again here back on the Severn Way, part 22, the Arlingham Loop. I'm currently standing on what is effectively a seawall barrier to protect the village, or hamlet should I say, of Upper Framilode. You can actually see the loop there, or start of the loop there. In fact, there's some pylons, electricity pylons, that cross the Severn at this point. Also at this point, originally there was once a ferry there, here, and I think it carried on right to just before the Second World War. And in that direction behind me is the Forest of Dean, which we've seen a few times now here on West Country Wanderings, and intend to go back to that part of the Gloucestershire at some point as well. Lots to explore over there. And the hill over there, again, something I hope to do, is Mayhill, which you can see from miles around when you're on the Cotswold Hills, when you're on the Malverns. Yeah, you can see it from everywhere. That's one I hope to climb up to one day. So I'm currently in Upper Framilode. There's also Framilode, Lower Framilode, but it tends to be known as just Framilode, which is our next port of call here on the Severn Way. But both of these hamlets lie within the larger parish of Saw-with-Freven. Saw is a village about a mile that way, and then, as I say, we'll be going around in a loop, joining up with the edge of Saw again when we get into Frampton-on-Severn. We'll also be seeing the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. So behind me here is the Church of St Peter. It was built for the workers on the surrounding Darrell estate, and it was consecrated in 1854. We've actually got some seaside scenes inside a beautifully painted roof. I'm not sure if it's open. If it is, I'll go inside and take some photographs that include that round about now. But anyway, we're going to set off on our journey, some 9 miles. See you in a bit. Beautiful scenes along the river on a day like today. The light is just gorgeous. It's about 20 past 8 on a weekday morning. Busy traffic driving here from where I live in Gloucestershire. Hustle bustle, people are going to work, to school, people are going out shopping, but here on the Severn Way, always calm. You may occasionally hear some heavy traffic, and that is again on the A48 on the West Gloucestershire side of the river, but this side all is peace, calm and tranquil. Here you can clearly see the seawall defences that protect the village or hamlet of Framilode, or Lower Framilode, whichever you prefer, just on the left. We need to cross over that, but hopefully we'll be on the higher seawall later, which is less muddy than where I'm currently standing. We've had a very, very wet October and early November as I film this, and we've got some wet days ahead, so a rare chance to get out and go back on the Severn Way today. So here I've arrived at Lower Framilode, or Framilode. Maybe there was a little quay here at one time. Now it's just a little place for local people to keep the odd boat or two, maybe a canoe, but it is, as I said before, a very dangerous river, and you always have to treat it with a great deal of respect. And that's looking back at the little hamlet of Framilode. Just walked through there, so the route diverges away from the seawall just for a little bit. So the brick wall here is in effect the seawall, the flood defence barrier, very similar style that we saw in the last episode when we were at Epney. So that there is looking back in the direction of the city of Gloucester and the Cotswold Hills in the horizon. Might be able to make out some smoke there as well. That comes from an incinerator near junction 12 on the M5. You can see that from miles. A bit of a controversial design, but beautiful day. The other thing to say about this section in terms of public transport, well, it's very, very difficult, unfortunately. The nearest bus stop with a regular service is at a place called Whitminster on the A38, but we're some miles to the west of that here. So yeah, your options are very limited if you're doing it via public transport, unfortunately. In fact, my options are going to be limited later because I'm going to probably have to divide the Severn Way up. More about that later in today's video. So I'm just standing on the sea wall again, so you get a bit of a higher perspective looking down on the river and the sandbanks on the western shore of the river, if you like. And if you look out there, midpoint across there, you can see why the River Severn is such a dangerous river. Just by those mud and sandbanks, you'll notice some ripples. That's where the current is changing. It's flowing in different directions, which is why it's such a dangerous river. So this here is the hamlet of Priding, or Priding. I'm not entirely sure how you do pronounce it. If anybody's local to this part of the Severn Vale, please let me know below. I like to get pronunciations right if I can, but sometimes it's not obvious. Over there I've just checked my map. I don't want to go through a load of long grass just for the sake of it, but it's marked that the stretch of the water there is called Unla Water, U-N-L-A. I'll just show you that on the screen. I don't know what that means. I'll look that up, and if I can find that out, I will put that in the usual way. Now, down in that direction is a large house called Wick Court, which I think you may be able to access through a footpath which runs alongside that cottage there, but I can't get any views of it from this direction. So this is where we leave the road that heads out of Priding, or Priding. Now in Arlingham Parish Council, but we're still some distance away from Arlingham Passage. But our Severn Way continues off on the right. Spans and width of the river is really widening here, isn't it? Still delightful light at the moment. Hopefully it'll stay. Slightly tricky in this section here, because if you see the fence line there, it's an electric fence. There's a sign back there saying the reason for that is because they keep chickens here, as well as the sheep. And that's to keep them inside the fence, although got no sign of said chickens at the moment. And this side here, there's something called the Arlingham Horseshoe Project, of which I know nothing. Horseshoe presumably referring to the loop that we're walking around today. If you know what the Arlingham Horseshoe Project is, well, you know what to do the usual way in the comments below. Well, that's a sudden change after going through that stile. We're now on a completely open field. Everything is widened out with the river to my right. And there's those pylons again, which go right across the River Severn. Not sure which way the electricity is going, or whether it's to and fro, but obviously it's something to do with the national grid. Now this section is better because it's not hemmed in by electric fences or sea walls. Because of that and the path being wider, it means it's a lot less muddier too. Also, we've got breeze here, so any water that's been lying around from the rain soon evaporates. Here we're looking right down on one of those mud banks here. Hello. And that's again looking across to the Forest of Dean. Sunlight just catching the top of May Hill there. We're now on the northern tip of the Arlingham Loop, making our way down there. And at this point here, sometimes you hear the expression, the Severn Sea. And you can see just why, with the extent of it and the size of it now, why it's called that. And you can see it going off in a different direction with a sharp turn to the right. Gone slightly grey over there and the rainbows appeared, so it looks like it's had some shower there over on the Forest of Dean. But in that direction, just move the camera around to the left, you can see that it's still sunny here. And I feel privileged to be at this point because I get the impression, and again, like most of the Severn Way, hardly anyone walks on this section because once you leave, well, Priding, there are no roads, so you're committed to go all the way right round to, well, Freethorn. You can also see here how the water is swirling, so Mount Plimlimmon, where we started our journey just over a year ago in Wales, is to the right, so the water is heading down on the screen from the right to the left, down towards Severn Beach. But you can also see that the water that is closer to the camera is kind of swirling it in both an up and down direction. Here we have a delightful spot. We've got the large puddles in a little lane here. I don't know what this lane serves. I think it's just the farmer's field that I've just come across. And we have a little pond here with a nice little island with a tree on it and another tree here in the foreground. That's very pleasing. So now we're walking on the flood barrier here on the top. I think the footpath kind of goes through a kissing gate near the bottom, but I'm going to stick up and then just only go down to that lower bit when I need to. You might be able to make out over there a cliff on the opposite bank, and that's called Garden Cliff, and that's near the town of Westbury-on-Severn, which has an amazing church. In fact, it's got a very short tower with a very tall spire. It's almost like a flint type material it's made from. One for a future visit, I think. And like the guidebook says, before I'm interrupted by that train heading north up to Gloucester on the opposite side, this is easy walking country. It really is, being on the top of this flood bank here, away from the mud. But beautiful views, especially with the light as it is today. There's an interesting phenomenon over there. You can see the mud banks on the right and the left of the river as it swings round to the right, cutting under Garden Cliff. But you can see there just how thick that mud bank is. It's almost like a mini cliff of its own. And there you can make out the sandbank right in the middle of the river. So the water is going around on both sides of it. Got lots of cows here. It was a bit difficult getting through that fence because they didn't want me to get up to the kissing gate, but we're through it now. Lovely cattle here though. Hello. Hello. It's a great view of Garden Cliff here with the sandbank in the middle of the river. Enormous tree there that we saw previously at Epney. Sorry, that's a tractor behind me which is flying the top of the flood banks here. And here through this kissing gate, well, to the left of it, we have a Severn Way sign in the blue, slightly damaged though. And also the Arlingham Horseshoe project. I think we had a cow on it before, now we've got a rabbit. That's a great view there across to the cliff, Garden Cliff, with that tree stuck in the middle of the sandbank. And to the left of that, that is the aforementioned Westbury-on-Severn church. So this is a good viewpoint here to see the curve, or the tip of the curve. That's Westbury-on-Severn on the outskirts, that's the A48. There's May Hill again. So there's our loop, bending round, see the tree hedges there. With the Forest of Dean in the distance, and then we're coming all the way around to the midpoint of the loop, which is over here, and that is the town of Newnham-on-Severn, which you will have seen previously here on West Country Wanderings if you watched my River Severn at sunset video. A couple more names for you here. The mud bank sand there is actually called Pimlico sand. I don't know why that is. Does anybody know why it's called Pimlico sand? I know that Pimlico in London, we're certainly a long way from London here in the West Country. This here is also called Arlingham Warth. Well, it looks like it might be pronounced Warth, but it's spelt W-A-R-T-H. I don't, again, know what that word means. I'll try and find out, put it in the usual way if I can. Now here near Arlingham Passage you can make out flooding. It's like a little lake here, but I don't think it's supposed to be a lake. Just there, so that's why we're on the walking on the flood bank here. Just see how wet it is down there after all the rain that we've had both this month so far and last month too. Sun is still out. It's a little bit chilly. I've got my fleece on and scarf, just my ordinary hat to keep the sun off, but it's very pleasant though. It's perfect walking conditions really. It's a little bit windy, but at least it's not warm and it's not raining. That's great. Gorgeous autumnal colours across to the Forest of Dean at the moment. That's on Severn Church. I say you might recognise that from that sunset video, which I did as a no commentary, no music, just natural sounds one. So here we are, Arlingham Passage, exactly halfway on the walk, so about 4.5 miles gone, 4.5 miles still to go. So that's where we were at Newnham-on-Severn to filming the sunset video I think it's about 6 weeks ago now, long gone now, but we're going to continue along the floodplain here, making our way round to Hook Cliff and see if we can see any fossils of that. Oh, just to let you know that there, in some of the guidebooks it says that the pub here, the New Passage Inn, is open for lunches. Sadly at the moment, as I mentioned in the sunset video, put a subtitle, it is closed. I think it went through opening and closing during COVID periods, but there are builders there at the moment, so hopefully it'll be refurbished and reopen again. Hello, we're back in vlogging mode. I've managed to swap the cameras. That's our view again of the wonderful church, which is just chiming there at Newnham-on-Severn. I'll put a link into that video if you want to have a look at that no commentary natural sounds video here. But also on that side here we've got Bullow Pill, and there was works there, not sure, I can't remember, there was quite a bit of history to that ship that's moored up the dock there. I'm walking back on the flood ridge here above there. The seat actually, where I managed to put my rucksack down and swap cameras over and have my lunch, is down there, and it's very, very boggy and soggy down in that direction, but it's a little bit drier up here, although I think there might have been cattle on it, so with their hooves it can make it a bit boggy, but not many walkers. I think I've just seen a couple people go past, but I think they parked up at the car park at Arlingham Passage here. But still beautiful day, and still the sun is out. Our journey here continues around to Hook Cliff. The other thing to mention around Bullow Pill is that there was an attempt to build a Severn tunnel long before the Severn railway tunnel was built, and the Channel Tunnel many years later. There was an attempt to build a tunnel right here to connect up both sides of this, where we are here in Gloucestershire, and I think it only got a few metres, maybe 100 metres if that, and because of the Severn, they found springs underneath the bed of the Severn and it burst through the lining of the tunnel. But there is a rumour that you can still see the portal of where that attempt was to build the Severn Tunnel here at Bullow Pill in West Gloucestershire. Just checked my map, and that bit over there is known as Bullow Pill as well. I think the first one might have been Collow Pill, but according to the OS map there's a rubber mill over there. I've not come across one of those before. And you can hear the trains going past on the main line. There was also a line that diverged away from the main line here to serve both the harbour and into the Forest of Dean. And this section here, notice another set of pylons that cross the River Severn at this point here, around the lower half of the Arlingham Loop, or Arlingham Horseshoe. It's kind of the end of the bend, if you like, where it kind of bites back in again when it's narrowest point. The land here is the narrowest point, linking up to where we started almost, and that's Hook Cliff in the distance there, where you can see the trees on the bank on the left of the screen. Now, it seems like a good time to tell to you about logistics of the Severn Way going forward until we get to Bristol. Well, Severn Breach and Bristol, of course, is pretty straightforward. Severn Breach is at the end of the Severn Breach line, so I can get to and from that without any trouble, and to and from Bristol. You've also got Thornbury, which is close by, which is reasonably well served by buses. But between here and down towards Albury on Severn, there's nothing. In fact, I think Frampton on Severn, which is where we're going to finish the video today, has just one bus a week. Yeah, you heard that right, one bus a week. I don't think Arlingham or Saw or Freedom have any buses at all. There was a school bus going through this morning collecting school children, but there's no regular scheduled bus service for the people that live in this part of the Severn Vale. Seems to be a common theme around this part of the world, doesn't we? We had that trouble at Upton upon Severn as well, just over the border in Worcestershire. But beautiful light here again. It's just wonderful to see that. Really enjoying the light. Been very lucky to have chosen a nice day again. After all the horrors that we've had to put it off. I don't know when I'm going to get to Bristol. It all depends on the weather and other things, you know, the sort of things in life. It just depends. I really don't know, so just have to carry on and hit the subscribe and the bell, and then YouTube will tell you when I get to the destination. But I've no idea when that will be. So I will just do it when I can. There may be some nice days in December. Now, that's why I was talking about logistics, because there is no public transport. I'm going to have to do the technique that I did when I was doing the Cotswold Way. In other words, parking the car somewhere, walking the route, and then walking back to the car. Which of course does mean, particularly with short days, light levels, that you can't walk that far. You're looking only about 4 or 5 miles on one section. So that's probably what I'm going to do next time. Maybe park at somewhere like Cambridge and then walk back to Frampton, and then do Frampton towards Cambridge, and then do the section to Sharpness Docks later. Now the River Severn has come out of the loop, the end of the loop at Arlingham. It's widened again noticeably. Oh, sorry, there's a bit of flare there, isn't there? It's widened again noticeably with the dimensions the width of the river, you can see it widening all the time, and it's certainly wider here now than when we started our walk today at Upper Framilode, and that's going to be a common theme all the way down to Severn Beach. That's what we're going to see all the way, constant widening of the river until it is dramatically wide by the time we get to Severn Beach. Now, you might be able to make out in the distance there, on the same side of the river as this one, but directly in front of us because of the bend in the river. That is Frampton upon Severn's church. Now, we won't actually be visiting that today, although we will be going to the edge of Frampton on Severn, like the source side of it. Frampton on Severn is a very long village. It's at least getting on for a mile long, if not longer, and the church is at the very end of that. So we will be seeing that church, which sits right next to the Gloucester Sharpness Canal and the River Severn, at next part in part 23 here on the Severn Way. We've got a wonderful shoreline there, made up of sand, mud and shingle. So we've got some nice cloud formations there, and you can see, as well as the very wide River Severn, the Cotswold Hills and the difference. Well, it's in effect one hill, isn't it? A ridge, apart from a few outliers like Bredon and Camlong Down. Yeah, so that is the range of the Cotswold Hills, where I think over that side we'll be looking towards Stinchcombe Hill, which is out towards the town of Dursley. A strange thought crossed my head, and I think I misspoke, because I think I might have said Frampton upon Severn. Of course, it's Frampton on Severn, as in Upton on Severn. And I think some places have upon. You've got Stratford upon Avon. It's not Stratford on Avon. Why is that? Does anybody know? Is it just by social osmosis? One became more popular than the other, and then everybody else stepped in line? Or is there another reason? Drop your thoughts and comments below. I love how the view changes within just, well, less than a quarter of a kilometre. You go on a bit further and you look back and the view's changed again, a different perspective of the Forest of Dean now. You might be able to make out a church, well, almost in the centre of the screen with the Union Jack flying. That is Arlingham Church. That's the first time we've seen that. So if you're not familiar with the area, yes, there is a village at Arlingham, although we're doing the Arlingham Loop. It doesn't actually pass the village itself, because that is about 3/4 mile inland or to the east of Arlingham Passage. Most delightful village. There is a pub there, I think it's called the Red Lion, and a lovely church too, as well as Arlingham Court. And I think there is a farm you can go around. I think it's called St Augustine's. I've got information on that. I'll add that in, and if it's still open to the public, I'll add a link in the description of today's video too. Now, thanks to the cows in this field, this section here up to the Kissing Gate was very difficult indeed. On the other side of the Kissing Gate now, it's drier off, but that was a bit hair-raising walking through that section there. Your feet sank right down into the mud and squelched, and you were sliding along as well. But not the most pleasant section of the walk so far, but I can't complain because the weather is indeed excellent today. These views just seem to be getting better and better with that quality of the light there, and the reeds being buffeted by the winds coming up the Bristol Channel. I think for some people the temptation might be, if they're set on getting to Bristol as quickly as possible, to literally cut across through Saw and make their way to Frampton on Severn and join the canal Sharpness and miss out the Arlingham Loop. And I know today, when I finished this walk, I'll only be 1 mile closer to Bristol than when I started this morning. But that doesn't bother me, because walking like this isn't about the final destination itself. It's about the experience of what I travel through, and being mindful within it, looking at the nature and the quality of the light and the river and everything else, the landscape, the geology, taking all that into account. This is a very, very fine section of the Severn Way indeed. So this is a lovely spot here. That is the start of Hook Cliff, but it says it's a sheer drop down there, so I'm not going to, certainly going to not try and access the bottom of the cliff going that way. The Severn Way actually climbs up into wood now, so probably go up into the wood and see if I can get to it from the other side, which I think I have done before. But yeah, so this is the start of Hook Cliff here by the banks of Sabrina. So we're now about to enter the one of two woods. I think this first one is called Smithwood or Smith's Wood, and the second one is called Longwood. They're not big woods. We'll get through the woods and then we'll see if we can get down to Hock Cliff. I think earlier on I may have called it Hook Cliff, but it is actually Hock Cliff. Well, this is the first section of woodland that we've had on the Severn Way for some time. It's been so long since we've been last. I think there might have been a tiny bit of woodland as we left Gloucester last time, but certainly not been much in woodland. There is a tree that's down here, so I'm hoping I can bypass that, round up around that. But yeah, I'll see you on the other side of the tree. Oh no, we can weave in and out of the trees. That's the tree that's down. Well, there it is, across the path. But I think I might be able to, excuse the flare, go through this way here. But yeah, this is lovely. So it's a nice contrast to the open spaces. Although I do like the open space of the river, you can still see the river through the trees there. That is lovely. And you've got the golden light because it's autumn and the leaves on the trees. This is a very delightful wood here on the Severn Way, almost at the village, or hamlet should I say, of Severn. Now I've left that wood, I'm just presented with the most extraordinary sight here, with the width of the river and the light, sunlight on it with those cloud formations. Excludes the flare, it's just the way where the light is at the moment. This is the second of our two woodlands. I think this is called Longwood, but I don't think it's particularly long. So now out of Longwood, that's Longwood there behind me. It was probably about twice the length of Smith's Wood, that was the other name, wasn't it? But our Hock Cliff is just down here, and I think there might be an access point to it coming up, because I'd like to have a closer look at that and show you that. And Severn Church, which has family connections to me, somewhere over there in the trees. I've got relatives that are buried in that churchyard there here at Severn in Gloucestershire. And yeah, we've got the expanse again of the sand. It's hard to film it because of the light, exactly where the sun is showing you down the river, down in the direction of Bristol. That's looking directly towards the sunlight, so it's a bit difficult getting a shot of that. I've also just spotted Sharpness Docks, the grain towers down there, so you can see now that's not far away at all. But I'm not sure it's going to be feasible to do it in one video because, like I said, the aforementioned logistics, and it's very clear seeing Framilode Church from this point as well. It's a bit of an odd phenomenon, the field behind me, because you've still got parsley and dandelion out in flower. I'm filming this in the middle of November 2023, but it's strange to see that out in flower here. Maybe it's the Sabrina influence on the plants. So the landscape has changed again here. We've still got our river there in the light, so it's hard to film, but it's wide and open out again from that small little meadow. So we've got a section here of grassland on both sides of the footpath, and Hook Cliff is still down there. I'm still hoping I can get around that. I seem to remember there was a seat here. I came here, I think it may have been about a year ago, and it was just to do a very short walk, just to get out of the house, because it's only a few miles. Oh, there's Severn Church, I'll show you that. A few miles from where I live, and I took some photographs at sunset here, because it's a beautiful stretch of the river. So now I've come round to Hook Cliff, and where you saw that seat, I managed to get down the back. There's some steps there. It takes you down to here, the bridge. You do have to be careful because there's thick mud and the tide comes up fast, so I'm not going to spend too long here, and I'm being extra cautious where I place my feet. But you can see here the geology. This is the clay and how it's set. Now this reminds me of beaches we've seen previously on West Country Wanderings in West Somerset, most notably Lilstock Beach. Now the main part of Hook Cliff is actually around the corner there, just by where you can see that tree branch washed up, but I've no intention of walking around on the thick mud. Sometimes you can come when we've had lower tides and it's summer and the clay's dried up a bit, but with all the weather we've had and the high tides recently, there's no way I'm risking that. It's still quite an extraordinary sight, seeing these clay formations here. And the lias of the rocks, you can make out the individual strata there. Similar to what we did when I was on Lyme Regis Beach in Dorset at the start of the year. And here you can see a fault line that runs up all the middle there. Even got plants growing in the centre. Now here you can definitely make out an outline of a fossil. I have no idea what it is. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to move it with my foot there. Just in there you can see it's almost like a half barrel shape with grooves in it. That's definitely fossil type. Now above that formation that I just showed you, they have this cliff here. I don't like getting too close to it because of the wet weather that we've had, and you can see over here pieces that have clearly fallen away in recent weeks and months. And here there's been quite a recent landslip down the side of the cliff. Now some of these boulders haven't actually fallen down from the cliff. They've broken away from that formation there, and they've been washed up underneath the cliff by the force of the river's tide. And you can see here by this boulder that's completely fractured down the middle, but in a curve formation, but it is still a very neat line. There's also evidence of fossils on that rock there, but it's a bit indistinct. They're similar to what we saw at Lyme Regis, but not so clear cut. Now you can see on here another section of the cliff just how complex the geology is here. I wouldn't even like to hazard a guess. You've got 3 or 4 different layers of rock there with lots of pebbles embedded in it as well. And here is another amazing sight. This is all the driftwood that Sabrina has brought up on the high tide. I've just spotted that amongst the driftwood there, a county council sign from Worcestershire there, so that's obviously been brought down the river. Now the sky is starting to change quite noticeably. We haven't got much farther to walk now though, so I'm going to crack on to get to our destination. There's a lovely landscape around here as well. It's not just about the river estuary. That over there is Freethorn Lodge, and I actually used to go to school with somebody who was at the nurseries there, Freethorn Nurseries, which is just at the back of those very colourful trees. We'll be saying goodbye to our river now because we're moving a bit inland as we head towards Frampton-upon-Severn, or the edge of it. And we'll see you next time, but that's not quite the end of the video. And here there's an Environment Agency outflow. In fact, the gentleman is working on it by the looks of it, so we can't continue straight over. The Severn Way, in fact, turns to the left at that point, goes over that little bridge there. In fact, they've recently replaced the parapets or the side fencing of the bridge, and then we'll be heading back with the other side of the Environment Agency vehicle, just along there. Now, I just want to point out that Kissing Gate, that's not our route. Might be a person called Heather watching this video. Hi Heather, if you remember a couple of years ago now, we came along here with Chris, didn't we? And there was a dreadful stile at that point. Well, they've now replaced it with a brand new Kissing Gate. Yes, wonderful and very touching memories. Now, I'd like to give praise where it's due. Well done, Gloucestershire County Council Footpath Department, for replacing all that. Both that and the very high style with a new kissing gate. Great job. Good signage here as well. So we now got easy walking along this track. Sorry if it's a little bit bumpy footage because it's a different lens. This one doesn't have lens image stabilisation, just the built-in camera one. It's also not quite so wide, but just to give you a flavour of what the track looks like at this point along the Severn Way. Now the landscape here and the sky has changed a lot. Having to walk through this very muddy and boggy field, making my way around to where Frampton-on-Severn joins the road leading to Saw and the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal, where I'll be closing today's video along the Severn Way. And just to confirm that we are on the right route, finally we do get a marker sign saying we're still on the Severn Way, but you could have been mistaken. That large house, by the way, that is Saw Lodge, and it fronts on to the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. Well, I don't think I've ever done a piece to camera with a rainbow behind me there. That is the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. I can't believe that. Got some photographs because obviously it'll go a bit lighter because it's doing me. But that is the end of Severn Way. Where are we? 22, isn't it? So next time will be a flat walk all along the towpath to Sharpness. I'll probably film it in over 2 days because of aforementioned logistics problems that we will have on that. But at the start of that video, I will include a visit into Frampton-on-Severn, which is well worth seeing. So we'll do a full tour of Frampton-on-Severn in that video. So I won't come down the towpath here. I'll walk through the village, through the green, down to the church and join the towpath there. It's been a wonderful walk today. I've really enjoyed the lighting conditions, and you couldn't have asked for better by finishing with that rainbow as well. But that's just the icing on the cake. That's just brilliant, and it has held off. The rain just started just briefly. We just had a light shower, but it was photogenic as well, so you can't beat that. Hope you enjoyed it today. Love to know what I think. Please drop comments in the description or bottom, you know where to put the comments. And I'll see you next time here on West Country Wanderings. All the best for now. Take care. Cheers now. Bye bye.